And welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Newell with MSO News Sports. Joining us now, Phil Stacy, Matt Williams, Nick Giannino from the Salem News, Nick Kukaru from the Gloucester Times, talking North Shore high school sports, particular high school sports. And we've been doing a lot of high school football, obviously, here in the last several weeks. We'll continue to do that and touch on a few other stories as well. Well, gentlemen, let's begin with what happened over the weekend. Let's just focus in on the Northeastern Conference. Swampscott with a strong win over Beverly, 22-6. Defense was one of their real keys, to be honest with you, a year ago in their state championship. Looked like it was a key again this week. Marblehead was a big winner over Masco, and now these two teams, unbeaten, will be meeting this coming weekend. So I don't know where you guys want to begin, but let's pick up with Swampscott and Marblehead. And I say let's begin, Phil, with Swampscott with that win against Beverly.
Sure, yeah. They did look very good defensively. Held Beverly twice inside the 3-yard line. Beverly came away with 0 points. Swampscott really stepped up in both instances and held their ground. The 2-yard loss on 4th down on one sequence. Another loss of 3 yards on the next, and then on 4th down, they picked off a pass tipped by Dylan Dubio and intercepted by Xavier Baskin. So Swampscott bent a few times, let's say, but didn't break. In fact, aside from a 83-yard touchdown run by Jaichaun Jones on a broken play, Swampscott would have shut Beverly out. I mean, they didn't, so I guess it's not worth talking about, but they've given up 12 points in 12 quarters of football so far. So they played very well defensively. They had a lot of hats to the ball. Dubio, I thought, was excellent the other day. He was all over the place. He made a ton of tackles. He was in on every play. The defensive line up front was really, really good. I'll butcher his name, but Papazoglu. Am I saying that right, Willie? Papazoglu?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Close anyway. Sorry to my Greek friends out there.
Just spell it. Just spell it for us, Phil. No. No.
I might be able to do that easier, actually.
Probably, yeah.
He had a really strong game at linebacker. They even threw Cam O'Brien in there a little bit when they needed to, the quarterback. It's funny, Cam, I mentioned to Coach Bobby Serino after the game. I said, geez, he did a nice job, rolling out and making things happen when he had to. And he said, that's funny. We get on him. We want him to stay in the pocket all the time. They call him Little Roethlisberger, which I don't think he likes very much. That's what the coaches refer to him as, Little Roethlisberger. We all know what kind of weapons Swampscott has on the outside. They welcomed back Andrew Augustin last week, and while he was certainly a factor, he wasn't like a huge factor for Beverly. So I would expect for him to be really a focal point against Marblehead this coming week. Xavier Baskin ran the ball well. He caught a touchdown pass as well. It's a shame that Swampscott will only have played 4 games this fall 2 season, having lost 3 due to coronavirus. But they did share a piece of the NEC South title with Winthrop. They went undefeated in their 3 league games. So they're going into their de facto Thanksgiving Day game this week, full of hope and really hoping to knock Marblehead off, especially after losing last year. I think winning the Super Bowl was great, but if there was a bit of taste in their mouths at all, it was losing to Marblehead, on Thanksgiving in 2019, the last time they played. So they'd love a little bit of revenge for that.
Any observations on the Marblehead Masco game, the rematch from the two teams played earlier this year?
It was chalk, really. I think Marblehead's focus was just getting out healthy and just trying to not overlook the game. But I think, they played later in the day. They already knew Swampscott was coming in undefeated. And, the idea of Marblehead and Swampscott both being undefeated, I mean, that brings back memories of the 50s and the 60s, right? I mean, so that's pretty exciting. They took care of Masco, made some mistakes, left a lot of points on the table. But, at the end of the day, it was a survive and move on type of thing for Marblehead. And so now I think both teams coming into a season with no playoffs, right? Your goals are to win all your games and to beat the town down the road. They call each other. And now only one of them can do that. and one of them is going to be able to do both of those things, and the other one is going to be eating the proverbial seagull. So it doesn't get any better than that in our corner of the world. It's a huge game. I think there's mutual respect, but I think there is still animosity, and I think this is still one of those few rivalries that remains where there is that feeling of we really, really, really want to beat these guys, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting. It's nice to be on the periphery of it and be interesting to see what happens. I mean, as Phil mentioned, Marblehead, I think, gets a lot of satisfaction out of ruining Swampscott's Super Bowl season. You guys won the Super Bowl, but you didn't beat us. And I think on the other side, Swampscott gets a lot of satisfaction by thinking, wow, you guys got all those NEC titles. You got 100 wins. You don't have a state title, and we have one. So there's barbs to be thrown on both sides, and that's what makes it an interesting rivalry.
And I think, something that you mentioned, Willie, the other day, and there's a lot of truth to it when we were talking. I think in general, most programs, you fight it out on the gridiron and, you battle between the lines. And then after the end of the game, you leave it there. Perfect example, I thought, was at the end of the game the other day, Swamps and Beverly, both coaches, effusive in their praise for the other and the programs that they run and things like that. I don't think that's the case with Swampscott Marble. I think there's some real old-fashioned dislike there. And to me, that's awesome. I think it's great. I'm not condoning, ill will towards anyone or things like that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having a rival that you're really, really competitive with and feeling like, yeah, I want to knock the snot out of those guys, and I'm going to be happy doing it. And I think that's how both teams approach this game. And I think that it's a healthy attitude in a football game to have. I'm not saying that you don't act like gentlemen and you don't play by the rules and things like that, but it's still okay to dislike your opponent. I mean, there's a reason that there's a scoreboard and they keep track of who wins and loses. And it's okay to want to get revenge for a previous loss or spoil another team's season or have bragging rights. And maybe some of that has been lost in certain segments of sports. But when I hear that, there's not a whole lot of love lost between these teams, I say, yeah, bring it on. Fantastic. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I mean, would anybody disagree with me?
I'd say it's fantastic until, some people get together after the game and, organize a brouhaha over Twitter and then ruins the hockey and basketball season. I won't mention when
that's never happened before.
That's never happened.
Well, not between Marblehead and Swampscott anyways. not between Marblehead and Swampscott anyway. We should be clear about that for those that don't know the history.
Well, see, that's the thing. I say that with the caveat. I do not encourage any of that extra crap.
Yeah, I was talking about my neck of the woods.
Yes, no, I get it.
Exactly.
I'm saying strictly in a football sense, I think it's great. Now, keep all the other crap in perspective. Come on. But football-wise, absolutely. Go ahead. That's good stuff.
Well, let's transition to you, Nick Kukaroo, because Peabody went up to Gloucester, picked up their fourth win, a shutout win over the Fishermen. We do have the Thanksgiving matchups we were alluding to just a moment ago with the Swampscott Marblehead game this weekend. Salem plays Beverly, and this coming weekend, Danvers plays Gloucester. And Danvers pulled off a last-minute win at Winthrop over the weekend, 7-6. So they're coming in with a win. But they have struggled this year, and Gloucester's hosting Danvers. It is at Gloucester, right, this weekend? No, it's at Danvers. My mistake. Yeah. So Gloucester's at Danvers on Friday. So, Nick, maybe put last weekend into context and look ahead to this weekend.
Yeah, well, I mean, they just I thought that 41-0 score was a pretty accurate reflection of, the play on the field, Gloucester versus Peabody. I mean, Gloucester, I think, had 5 yards of offense in the first half. I had them at 31 for the game. And, one of their leading rushers had negative yards on 10 carries. So, I mean, there wasn't really, they couldn't get much of anything going on offense. And then, Shea Lynch for Peabody was, he just picked them apart. I think he had 13 completions on 17 attempts, over 200 yards. So, the good news for Gloucester is they're not going to see that kind of passing attack this week. That they've been pretty, solid against the run this season. So it's a better matchup against Danvers. But, we'll see. I think you have to say Danvers is the favorite. I think what we saw last week, and that Danvers-Winthrop game proved is just kind of the difference, Swamps get excluded. The difference between the NEC North and the South this year, I think there's a humongous gap between the two. Obviously, Swamps get excluded from that. They could probably beat anybody in the NEC North. But, you had Winthrop, who was undefeated at the time. Danvers has really struggled, and, Danvers beat them in what sounded like a slugfest of a game. So I think in Winthrop, too, which is not an easy place to play at all. Speaking from experience there. But yeah, I mean, I expect a slugfest again Friday night, low scoring game. We'll see. I think Gloucester's probably going to have to get a couple turnovers. They have to win the turnover battle, I think, to have a chance. But, we'll see. Stranger things have happened.
We can touch up.
I think it's going to be a smash mouth game. Probably be a pretty fast game, too. I don't see a lot of passes being thrown. I think it's going to be pad on pad up front and helmet on helmet, and whatever holes are created, who can sneak through those and who can stop guys from getting through those will be the difference there. I mean, it could come down to a missed extra point, honestly.
Yeah, it definitely could. Well, the funny thing is, Gloucester, ever since their running back Frank DeSisto, he got hurt against Beverly a couple weeks ago. Ever since he's gone out, their passing game has been better than their run game. They've passed for more yards than they've run for, which is a rarity there. I mean, they haven't really had much of a chance in the run game. Even the last two, Winthrop kind of shut down their run too. They hit a couple big pass plays up the seam to get back in that game. So you might see Gloucester kind of open it up again, which I'll give them credit for. They don't bang their head against a wall if the wing tees stop. They'll switch it up and they'll at least try to push it a bit if they have to.
Well, we can touch more on the Northeastern Conference in a moment, Cape Ann League as well. But I want to jump to the privates for a moment. And Nick Giannino, I think you were at the Fenwick game, and Fenwick's Jake Connolly, 5 touchdowns against Spelman. St. Mary's was a winner over Bishop Stang this weekend, and the Prep was a big winner over Tewksbury with James Guys, 263 yards of rushing. So a lot of great individual performances there to discuss. But where would you put Fenwick right now? What can you put them into some context for us, Nick?
Well, I can tell you they're really good. I can't think of a team in our area that would give them a run, except for maybe the Prep, maybe Marblehead. But, and you guys can chime in too. But, that was the first time I seen them. Pretty flawless performance. They allowed the 1 touchdown in the first quarter. There was just a breakdown defensively in the secondary, and they got an easy touchdown. But other than that, I mean, picture perfect performance for Fenwick. They ran 19 offensive plays and yielded 55 points out of that. So that doesn't tell you, how good they were. Then I don't know what will. They seemed like every time they touched the ball, they were reeling off a big play. Obviously, Conley with the huge day. I mean, he was ridiculous. He was just, finding the openings, juking guys, running out in the open field, and he had a ton of long runs. He had some really good punt returns. It was just one of those days, he just had it going and couldn't be stopped. And I was impressed with the rest of the team too. It wasn't just Jake. I think even without Jake, they would have been fine. Chris Wilson looked good throwing the ball. The defense was great other than that one breakdown. So, they're a scary team. I think, speaking with Dave Woods after, he knows how talented they are, and it's just a shame that they can't compete for anything this year. I know we say that about a lot of teams, but they could have made a run, trying to get back to Gillette. Just too bad that's going to be stripped from them, but still have the chance to finish out next week with a perfect season, and I think it's well deserved. They got a really good senior class there that is going out on a high note. So it was fun to watch them. They were ridiculous on Saturday.
And they just got a final opponent too. They were scheduled to play Arlington Catholic, and Arlington Catholic, I think, is winless, and that would have been a, sacrificial lamb type deal. So neither team wanted to play the other. And kudos to Nick, your alma mater, Pentucket Regional, stepping up.
Okay.
Steve Hayden's boys are coming down to Peabody to play Fenwick on Friday night at 7 p.m. So the finale for both teams. If I'm not mistaken, in fact, I have the records here. I don't think Pentucket has won a game. We've lost a couple games, but yeah, so they're 0-4. But they're willing to come down and play Fenwick. Ton of credit to the Sachems. Nice job on those guys' part.
Yeah, I saw Pentucket play against Hamilton Wenham, which was a decent game. I think they put up 14 points that game and only lost by a touchdown, if I remember correctly. So, you never know. I know they don't have the numbers that Fenwick has. They don't have the senior leadership that Fenwick has, and probably not as big or as quick. But, hey, you never know. Last game of the year, I'm sure Pentucket will come to play. Steve will have them ready, and that'll be fun. Fenwick really hasn't been tested this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure every one of their games have won by at least 2 touchdowns. So we'll see how that one goes. But that's good to see. I know they've met in the past, those two teams. So maybe there's some kind of relationship there between the two coaches.
Fenwick's closest game was 21-7 at Bishop Thean. Other than that, they haven't had a game that was closer than 33 points.
Yeah.
So
you know what Dave Woods told me after the game? He said it's really easy to call plays when every play works. I mean, like I said, they ran 19 plays against Cardinal Spellman, and I don't know, half of those were touchdowns.
So they don't have to go back to the
drawing. Work a little bit more against Kentucky. We'll see.
They don't have to go back to the drawing board at the half, do they? No.
Oh, and you know what? They Dave told me, following the game, I talked to him over the weekend, and he said that they would try and to get a hold of anybody that would play, including Catholic Memorial, which, I think most people would say is probably the best team in the state. They won that undefeated showdown with Xaverian over the weekend. They beat St. John's Prep early this year. Most people probably saw the rant online from, Coach Amos Alonzo Stagg there at CM. And, Dave said, hey, they asked CM if they wanted to play, and no dice. So I'm glad
they're scared. CM is scared.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I do think it's too bad.
Dips, but yeah.
I do think it's too. I mean, it's not to knock Bishop Fenwick in any way, but I do think it's too bad that it seems like the CCL is down this year. Like, these teams are not, it's just too bad that there's a couple of good teams, right? And maybe it's Fenwick that's making them look bad, but I just look at, it's too bad we couldn't see that Fenwick team against some better competition. Think
about the great Fenwick Spellman games over the years they've had.
That's what I mean. Like, it's just kind of unfortunate that it seems as though the league is not great this year. I don't think, Bishop Stang's 4-2. That's the only other team with a winning record. And I saw them, and they,
What's Fian's record? They played Fenwick tough.
2-3. No, Fian's a good team. That's a bigger team. That's a bigger school of physicals. So, it makes sense if that was a tight game. I just, I'd love to see Fenwick play Marblehead or Swampscott. I do think that those are teams that certainly could, compete with them. I'm not sure they'd run roughshod over the NEC, in other words, with these big scores. It's just, I wish that we could see them in maybe a different scenario. It's strange that maybe their best team ever lines up against some other CCL teams that are in a down period. Luck of the draw, though. What can you do?
And that brings up a point. I think I wrote last week, how can you call a Fenwick team that's only played now 5 games their best ever? It's difficult to say. It's not that long ago. They had a 2013 team that went 13-0, crushed everybody, beat who's the guy with the sweater there in the Super Bowl? The homemade Northbridge.
Northbridge, yes.
Yeah,
Northbridge.
Right.
Well, how about Ipswich? There's a team. Bishop Fenwick blew Ipswich out of the water in the playoffs last year, as I recall. It might have been 2 years ago, but it was recent. Same kids on the field. Ipswich is undefeated. They're full of vinegar. I'm sure if they got another shot, I'm not saying Fenwick wouldn't win. I would pick Fenwick in the paper. All respect to Ipswich and their motorcycles over there, but I think they'd find a way to keep it close and be a little bit more competitive than we would expect.
Oh yeah, I think those Ipswich kids are tough, and
that's what I mean. Like, it's too bad that game would be worth the price of admission.
Yes, I think that would be two very contrasting styles. You have all the bells and whistles and every fancy play that Fenwick can think of, they're going to run. Whereas Ipswich is like, yeah, okay, we're just going to pound away at your buck sweet belly and try to stop it. Nothing too fancy. And they, both schemes work for both programs, and that would be interesting. I tend to agree with you, Willie, in that I would choose Fenwick, but I think Ipswich would give them a battle the entire way. And, speaking of which, I think Hamilton Wenham is going to give Ipswich a battle on their game Friday night. I think Hamilton Wenham is a very deceiving 2-3 record-wise, where they struggled out of the gate. They had some injuries, particularly a quarterback to Carter Coffey. They weren't able to gel defensively for a few weeks, but as of late, I know they're coming off of a bye, which I think would probably allow them to get a little bit healthy and prepare for Ipswich even more so. I think they're coming in with nothing to lose. No one expects them to win. They're the underdog. They're coming into Ipswich. Ipswich is the team with the undefeated record. Ipswich is the team that wants to, obviously finish undefeated, win at home, beat their rivals. Hamilton Wenham can throw the kitchen sink out and let it all hang out and see what happens. So I'm very curious to see what happens on Friday night at Jack Welch Field.
2 weeks to prepare too. I mean,
right, with the bye.
Yeah. Absolutely. Good point.
Hasn't that been an unpredictable series too in recent
it
years?
Does feel like, over the years there have been some upsets. Like Hamilton Wenham's had a little bit of that North Final hangover, right? That we've seen in the Danvers Gloucester series. Like Hamilton Wenham will lose a playoff game. You assume they're going to kill Ipswich and then they lose. So it's been a series of upsets. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but
I think the last time they played though it was vice versa. I think Hamilton Wenham upset Ipswich.
Correct. Yeah, I'm just looking at the I'm looking at the series here. It looks to me, if I'm ballparking, since coaches Pugh and Facette got there, I believe it's 2-2. So pretty even. Back and forth deal there.
And another game that could be surprising, little bit. I don't think there's a lot of fanfare surrounding it, but Beverly and Salem. We've talked a lot about both programs on the podcast. Salem has yet to win this fall 2 season, 0-6. But, I think under the right circumstances, they could have success. Willie, you've seen them. Nick, you saw them once, right? I think that, if their passing game is able to get on track, I think if they were able to score first, they might have a chance to pull something off. It's like the shot in the arm that they might need. And if you're Beverly, I think they're super disappointed at a 2-4 season. I think they felt like they could have played with Swampscott, and they did play with Swampscott and came away with no points twice inside the 3, as I mentioned. I think they gave away a game in Danvers earlier in the season. I think, while Peabody outplayed them in the second half of their game, I think they felt like there were chances in the first half where they could have put them away. So if I'm Beverly, I'm thinking, geez, we could, best case scenario here, probably be 5-1. Instead, you're 2-4. So you're going to feel sorry for yourself and allow Salem to come in and dictate things this Saturday at 40 Field? Or are you going to take out your frustration on Salem and end the season the way that you hope to have played all season? I think it's an interesting dichotomy, and both teams have a ton to play for. I hate that phrase, throw out the records, but in this case, I really do feel like, you really can't pay attention to them as much as you do who brings what to the field on Saturday.
With these kind of go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
I was going to say Salem's knocked at the door a little bit. They played better against Maskell than the score indicates. They played okay against Saugus. They, I think, gave up 42 against Saugus the first time and only 28 the second time. So, I mean, they're getting better defensively. They're taking better care of the ball. Scott Connolly, the athletic director, when I talked to him on Saturday about his son's game, mentioned to me that I think Salem has had 8 or 10 punts blocked or returned for touchdowns so far this season, which is insane.
That's
in
crazy.
5 games, and they didn't have any on Saturday against Saugus. So that's a big part of the reason why they were able to hold Saugus down defensively. So I mean, if they clean up the special teams, they can keep it close. The freshman quarterback Corey Grimes is not bad. He throws a really good deep ball. Having said that, Beverly's got some great athletes in the secondary, right? So it's going to be hard. I mean, you don't want to be testing Jaichaun Jones. I think he has interceptions now in back-to-back games or 2 out of the last 3 games or something like that. So definitely some interesting matchups. And, I do think for the seniors, that's one of those 100-year games. And, maybe it's not quite as intense as Marblehead Swampscott anymore, but for the seniors who woke up on Thanksgiving and thought they might never get a chance to play Beverly or Salem, I mean, I'm guessing they're going to wake up like it's Christmas morning on Saturday, and that can lead to some special things happening.
I just want to circle back very quickly to the Cape Ann League. So just to put in context here, what Ipswich has done this year, they are the only overall undefeated team in the Cape Ann League, beat all in the Baker, the small division, but they're 5-0. And as we've touched on their game this weekend as they host Hamilton Wenham, Linfield leading that Kinney division, the larger division, 4-0 in the division, playing North Reading this weekend, but 5-1 overall, having lost to Ipswich. So what a great season for Ipswich, just to put that into some kind of context. We talked about Marblehead, Peabody, and Swampscott and Winthrop so far this week. So, but I guess I just wanted to make people know that I think that Ipswich Hamilton Wenham game should be a great game this coming weekend. But boy, what a season Ipswich has had, as you guys have been alluding to. They've been dominant, and the score as we mentioned last week, that stunning score I thought against Linfield was a pretty good indication of the team that they have. So be interesting this weekend. Any other thoughts on football, guys, that you guys want to touch on this weekend or last weekend?
Yeah, I mean, just going off of what you said there, Bill, like if you don't have the motivation in your last game, I don't care if it's, the late April or late November when you're playing, if you don't have the motivation to try to knock off your foes, if you're Salem, you want to win your last game. You win that last game, that makes up for an entire 6 weeks of losses. If you're Marblehead and Swampscott, you beat the other team, you finish perfect and they have 1 loss, and that loss is to you. Same thing with Danvers and Gloucester. You beat that opponent, it ends all the tough sledding that you had during the week. Hamilton Wenham beats Ipswich. Pawtucket beats Fenwick. On Prep, St. John's Prep goes to BC High and beats BC High, a team that beat them in double overtime at the Prep early this year. Essex Tech goes to Lowell Catholic, and what have they lost? 4 in a row, I want to say, Willie. They've had some growing pains over there, but there's talent on that Essex Tech roster. If they go and beat Lowell Catholic to end the season, that gives not only the seniors a good feeling to end their careers in a season that they thought might never have happened, but for the juniors and sophomores who'll be back this fall and ready to play, that gives them the impetus to build off of that and get back in the weight room right away and start training for a training camp in August. So I think there's a ton to play for this weekend. It's a high energy weekend, and I hope everyone can feel that and feed off of it Friday night and Saturday afternoon.
There's no doubt, and I'll throw it back to Phil here real quick. For those that don't know, the state has eliminated the Super 8 tournaments for the next couple of years, and I just want to point to what we saw this weekend in Tewksbury. Okay, people say, oh, Marblehead, Fenwick, could they play with St. John's? No. Look at this. I mean, you got an undefeated Merrimack Valley Conference team. A somewhat mediocre St. John's Prep team by their standards goes over there, drops a 50 burger on them, and turns into a laugher. And that's with all due respect to Tewksbury, but that's why Division I football is what it is. That's why there's almost nobody public school in the state that can hang with the Catholic Conference in football anymore. And we're going to want to get rid of a Super 8 in these other sports. We need to add a Super 8 to football, not get rid of it for hockey and baseball, I mean, just look at what happened with Tewksbury this weekend. I think that score, if that doesn't really, and I'm not saying, I picked St. John's to win. I thought they would win. I did not expect them to run for 350 yards and score a 50 burger against one of the best public school teams in the state. If that game doesn't illustrate the difference between the haves and the have-nots with the Catholic Conference and the rest of everybody else, I don't know what does.
Or the haves and the haves, really, basically.
Yeah. Well, you took the words out of my mouth there, Willie. And by the way, I love the phrase 50 burger and the fact that you used it twice. That's
Classic.
No, you're right. I mean, hey, from the time that Moses wore short pants, we've been hearing, well, the Catholic schools draw from, 45 communities. Oh, yes, they do. That is the point of what they do. And yes, your public school has, one kid or one school district. That's the way it goes. I mean, should there maybe be a parochial tournament and a public school tournament? Maybe, that's an argument for another day, I think. But you're right, to take away from, the drawing card, I think, for if you stick with hockey and baseball, it's what a lot of these kids go to play ball for, and it's why they stick at these schools, because they want to have a chance to play in the Super 8. If anything, I think we should add to it, and this should be a Super 8 girls hockey tournament, a Super 8 softball tournament, a Super 8 girls soccer tournament. Why not? Why not strive to be in that Elite 8? Why couldn't say the Damberside girls soccer team be a Super 8 girls soccer team? And instead of beating somebody 11-0 in the second round of the state tournament, they go and they play, Concord Carlisle in a Super 8 first round game. That might be a 1-0 game or whatnot. I think here's what I don't get, in this day and age where there are so many tentacles out there reaching to take kids away from public and parochial schools, why would you do anything that would exacerbate that and make those kids look towards something else? Whether it's private schools or junior programs or full season this or that or academy, why would you give them a reason to not want to stick with you? I don't understand that for the life of me. Well, if the Super 8 is a drawing card for kids to want to go to schools, keep the Super 8.
Matt, if you want to weigh in, just we got 30 seconds.
Yeah. Very quickly, the Super 8's a perfect solution because there are some Catholic schools that are failing, going bankrupt, the really small ones. So when we say Catholic schools, I mean, mostly you mean Catholic conference, right? Not all Catholic schools. So the Super 8's a perfect solution because it allows those smaller schools that maybe don't have the resources of the Zavarian Brothers teams to be in a regular division. So it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it, guys.
All right, we're out of time. But on that note, I also give a little shout out to the Linfield volleyball team for winning their Cape Ann League title this past week. So, gentlemen, we'll talk again soon.